Good evening, gamers, and welcome to another short takes. We're calling these things, Brent, where we hop on here, we react in the heat of the moment to the news and things that are happening around the gaming industry. And boy, we've got some very interesting things to talk about this evening in regards to Microsoft. So I'm Ben. Piccolo 930 is my handle. You can see it underneath my picture here. That's Brent on the other side of the microphone at the dude 1979 himself. Brent, what's happening, dude?
What's going on, buddy? How you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. It's been a very long day at work. It's very late to get to the indie spotlight. Just finished playing Mark of the Ninja Remastered for a little bit there on the spotlight. Super cool game, by the way. That game's really good. That's a game that you're really gonna enjoy. So I highly recommend that you get your hands on that one at some point. That's definitely something that I want to play some more of here. But yeah, super cool game. Plays great, looks great. Just an all around awesome joint. Glad I finally got to play it after all these years. But yeah, the matter at hand this evening, Brent. So what we do on short takes here is we're like I said, we're gonna take the stories of the moment instead of waiting until the end of the week and kind of gathering up all the stories in mass. Like we're gonna react to the biggest stories as they happen so that we can get our opinions out there for you guys and gals to consume and hopefully enjoy. So couple things going on in the world of Microsoft this evening, Brent. First and foremost, yesterday they came out with this article regarding xCloud, a very interesting thing that they've been hinting at for a while now. This kind of started at the end of their E3 presentation when Phil hinted at the kind of streaming services that they're looking into. We've seen people like Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, very boldly proclaim the future of gaming is in streaming devices. So Microsoft trying to get out in front of all this, and they've unveiled kind of their first part of this plan with Project xCloud. So I'm going to read from this article right here off the official Microsoft blog. So it reads as follows: The future of gaming is a world where you are empowered to play the games you want with the people you want, whenever you want, wherever you are, on any device of your choosing. Our vision for the evolution of gaming is similar to music and movies. Entertainment should be available on demand and accessible from any screen. Today, I'm excited to share with you one of our key projects that will take us on an accelerated journey to that future world, Project xCloud. By the way, this is Kareem Chowdhury, who's the corporate vice president of gaming cloud at Microsoft. Today, the games you play are very much dictated by the device you are using. Excuse me. Project xCloud's state-of-the-art global game streaming technology will offer you the freedom to play on the device you want without being locked to a particular device, empowering you, the gamers, to be at the center of your gaming experience. Ultimately, Project xCloud is about providing gamers, whether they prefer console or PC, new choices in when and where they play, while giving mobile-only players access to worlds, characters, and immersive stories they haven't been able to experience before. To realize this vision, we know we must make it easy for developers to bring their content to Project xCloud. Developers of more than 3,000 games available on Xbox One today, and those building the thousands that are coming in the future, will be able to deploy and dramatically scale access to their games across all devices on Project xCloud with no additional work. So that's a key point there. Scaling and building out Project xCloud is a multi-year journey for us. Another key point. We'll begin public trials in 2019 so we can learn and scale with different volumes and locations. Our focus is on delivering an amazing added experience to existing Xbox players and on empowering developers to scale to hundreds of millions of new players across devices. Our goal with Project xCloud is to deliver a quality experience for all gamers on all devices that's consistent with the speed and high fidelity gamers experience and expect on their PCs and consoles. We've enabled we've enabled compatibility with existing and future Xbox games by building out custom hardware for our data centers that leverages our years of console and platform experience. We've architected a new customizable blade that can host the components of multiple Xbox One consoles, as well as the associated infrastructure supporting it. We will scale those custom blades in data centers across Azure regions over time. And there's a video that goes along with this article, Brent, where they kind of show these like
Mm-hmm.
server data centers with multiple Xbox components, and it's really neat to kind of see that all come together. We are testing Project xCloud today. The test runs on devices, mobile phones, tablets, paired with an Xbox wireless controller through Bluetooth. And it is also playable using touch input. The immersive nature of console and PC games often requires controls that are mapped to multiple keys, buttons, sticks, and triggers. We are developing a new game-specific touch input overlay that provides maximum response in a minimal footprint for players who choose to play without a controller. Cloud game streaming is a multifaceted, complex challenge. Unlike other forms of digital entertainment, games are interactive experiences that dynamically change based on player input. Delivering a high quality experience across a variety of devices must account for different obstacles and stuff we've talked about in the past, Brent, such as low latency, video streamed remotely, and support a large multi user network. In addition to solving latency, other important considerations are supporting the graphical fidelity and frame rates that preserve the artist's original intentions and the type of input a player has available. Microsoft, with our nearly 40 years of gaming experience, starting with PC, as well as our breadth and depth of capabilities from software to hardware, and deep experience of being a platform company, is well equipped to address the complex challenge of cloud game streaming. With data centers in 54 Azure regions and services available in 140 countries, Azure has the scale to deliver a great gaming experience for players worldwide, regardless of their location. Developers and researchers at Microsoft Research are creating ways to combat latency through advances in networking topology, in video encoding and decoding. Project xCloud will have the capability to make game streaming possible on 4G networks and will dynamically scale to push against the outer limits of what's possible on 5G networks as they roll out globally. It's my understanding that 5G is not even out yet. Currently, the test experience is running at 10 megabits per second. Our goal is to deliver high-quality experiences at the lowest possible bit rate that will work across the widest possible networks, taking into consideration the uniqueness of every device and network. We are looking forward to learning with you during our public trials next year and sharing more details as we continue this journey to the future of gaming with you at the center. Brent, let me get your reaction to all of this, my friend.
Well, initially, first of all, when I think of streaming, my experience with streaming over the years has been less than stellar. Everything from PlayStation Now to even when we use SharePlay on our PS4s, or when I tried using the NVIDIAs at one point, and even Steam's through the Steam machine upstairs and whatnot. Streaming has always been that almost like virtual reality. Like, it sounds really cool, but it's never quite evolved into what we really want it to be. We really want this streaming on the go to be very, very a viable option, not just something that it's kind of cool, but it doesn't work very well.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with this, man, with the things they're saying, I mean, there's a lot of that techno jargon that I can't really, it goes way over my head. But the focus is on latency, and the one thing they mentioned, Project xCloud, running on 4G networks right now. Currently, the testing experience is running at 10 megabits per second.
Mm-hmm.
10 megabits per second. Now, for an example, I actually, on my way home, I was at a stoplight. It was like, you know what, dude? Here's my phone. I'm going to check to see what kind of download speeds I can get from right here on my LTE. I was getting 86 megabits per second. So clearly, if they're running this test at 10 megabits and they're thinking this thing will run on 4G, dude, being 70 over, that's a lot of room for a good experience. Now, whether or not they deliver on that, we don't know. But, at first, when you read this, you can hear the passion. You can hear, the excitement for it. You watch the video. You can see everyone's really excited about it. And, at first, it's easy for us to be like, well, streaming has never really been all that great and all this and that. But, dude, at some point, Ben, at some point in the future, whether it be next year or 5 years down the line, someone's going to perfect this. Someone's going to make this a viable option. And if there's anybody that's going to do it, it's going to be Microsoft. These guys aren't going to sit there and see, the way PlayStation Now struggled in terms of its streaming. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't ideal. It was a cool concept, but Microsoft isn't going to go out there and push out something similar that's not as cool. Microsoft is going to run with this if they know it is a surefire hit. If they know this thing is going to work as advertised. That at first I was like, just another streaming service. But man, when you think about this stuff and you think about, running at 10 megabits per second, that's where the testing is right now. That's easy. You can get that over you can get that over your mobile phone if you're in a good area. Obviously, it varies in area, but Saginaw is not like a huge market, so we're getting decent speeds here. I gotta believe it's even better in other areas. But in terms of getting it to work, yes, I do think Microsoft can make this happen. I won't be surprised if it works very well. The thing is going to be for people who are on data caps, or if if they don't have the internet service that can provide those speeds, they're going to be kind of left in the wind. But I love this passion. I love the way they're talking. I love the things they're saying, even though a lot of the stuff is way over my head. I am really, really intrigued to see how this plays out. They seem very confident with this, boys. They seem very, very confident with this. And when Microsoft is confident about something, they tend to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100% on it. There's no way Microsoft would roll out this, make a big deal about it, if they weren't confident that they had found a solution that at least works for a majority of people in areas that can consume their games over streaming. So I have no doubt that when they roll this out, that, like you said, that the 10 megabits per second, like they're talking about all of the right issues that we've been talking about in the past when it comes to streaming. Latency being the biggest issue with streaming. Obviously, video games require a certain degree of input lag that is minimal and not noticeable in order to function properly. So if they've figured out a way, 10 megabits or whatever the case may be, to get that type of experience over streaming, then clearly they're going to be onto something. Obviously, there's a lot of questions about this, like with the 10 megabits, like what's that image look like what with these 54 data centers that they have around the world and the 140 countries they support. Are we talking everywhere in the country? I'm counting the dots that they have on the map here. It looks like there's 13 of these centers in the United States. So does this cover all of the states? Does it only cover the ones that are around the certain areas where the servers are? These are questions that we're going to have, and I'm sure Microsoft's going to continue to build these things and kind of spread this out. But yeah, it's very interesting to hear them come out and read this article as we sit here today. Because when we talked about this a few months back on the podcast, Brent, we were pretty confident in the fact that a streaming future, or a predominantly streaming future, was something that was pretty far in the distance. But the way Microsoft's talking about this, like, are we a little bit closer to this than we might think, to this becoming a reality, or this becoming a viable or maybe even preferred way to experience gaming? Like, are we closer to this future than we think?
Again, I don't think Microsoft would be backing this horse this much and making this big of an announcement if they weren't sure they could get it to work. I'm pretty confident that we're going to see something from Microsoft that is as near as perfect as possible for these environments that you're going to be streaming in. But Jeremy Vasquez in the chat, he made a good point. He says, in PlayStation Now, it's going to be interesting to see how these games work when you're playing multiplayer over streaming. I mean, there's going to be certain instances I want to see how that's going to work. That's something that I'm a little concerned about as well, is how will the latency of multiplayer do well on top of the latency of streaming. So I mean, that'll be interesting to see. But in that video, they showed a couple of shots of people playing on their devices, and I mean, for my money, I thought the games looked pretty good. The Forza looked really good. Halo looked really good. So I mean, in terms of the visual fidelity, it looks good. Obviously, it's going to depend on the speed that you're playing on. But from what we saw in the video, and I mean, I don't know if it was doctored up. I'm going to take it at face value. I'm going to. I mean, they said in the video this is actual gameplay, so I'm going to take their word for it. And from what I saw there, I thought that looked really, really good.
Yeah, they just don't tell you they're on the rocket fiber connection on that with with the latest Galaxy that hasn't been released yet. They leave all that stuff out. No, but yeah, that was what I was wondering as well. It's like, is this the actual image? Is this a superimposed image on the thing? Like you said, it says that it's actual gameplay or whatever. So we'll take him at face value on that. And yeah, it's like with this, and coupled with what we see going on with the Google Yeti project as well, Brent. I don't know if you've seen some of the videos of Assassin's Creed Odyssey playing through the Chrome browser, but those videos look incredible.
Mm-hmm.
1080p 60 frames coming right through your browser. And that's obviously Google's big streaming initiative as well, trying to get these big AAA games to you to be able to access through your browser. So I mean, there are some very, very interesting things going on in the world of streaming right now, and we've heard the whispers about this, and they've gotten louder, especially with this past E3. There was a lot of talk about streaming services and what Microsoft's doing and what Ubisoft sees in the future and all that kind of stuff. And man, as we sit here today, dude, I feel like we're a little bit closer than at least I initially anticipated. Like I thought this was maybe something on the 5 to 10 year like project list, right? Something
Right.
that would be maybe a generation removed from where we are right now. So we get to the PS5 generation, whatever that looks like, and then maybe the generation after that. That's when we see streaming become like a more normal thing. But man, the way we're talking about this now, it's almost like this is right around the corner. Like this could be an integral part of the next generation of gaming is this streaming service. And I guess my other question with this, Brent, is like, what does this mean like for the industry, and is this a good thing for the industry? One of the things I thought about was um, when you look at somebody like Nintendo, for instance. So what Nintendo's done over the years is they've always made a piece of hardware specific to the kind of games that they want to make and then develop their games around that piece of hardware. So you think about what they've done with like the Wii, even the Wii U to a certain extent, what they did with the Nintendo 64 when they had that weird three-legged controller that people were trying to wrap their heads around, but they developed it to develop these 3D games that they made in that space. So, that's something that Nintendo's talked about in the past as well. Like, look, we love developing hardware because we make our games around this hardware, and it's kind of this symbiotic relationship that they have. So what does the streaming future look like for somebody like Nintendo, or even for some of these like VR, for instance? Like where does that fit into this streaming future? Like what do you think this kind of stuff means for the future of this industry? And do we maybe run the risk of losing out on a little bit of the innovative side of the business if everything goes towards a more streamlined, like streaming focused future? If you get what I'm saying?
I think I get what you're saying, but like I don't think streaming and Microsoft has said this in the video and in a post.
Hmm.
This is not going to replace traditional console gaming. This is
Right.
just another option. Whether or not it's going to, we're going to lose something with this unfolding and this rolling out. I don't know about that. I actually think that this is going to benefit the industry because you're going to get. Obviously, for Project X Cloud, it's going to be tied to your Xbox account, so you don't have to have the system, but people can just buy the games and stream them over their phones or their tablets and what have you. So I think this is going to be a boon for the industry. I think you're going to see more sales. I think you're going to see some of these indie developers like, man, we only got a couple platforms and there's not a lot. But you're opening up. I mean, if you look at we talk about the sales of like PUBG and Fortnite and how many times they were downloaded to mobile devices. I mean, millions upon millions upon millions. I mean, millions of people. And if you can release your ecosystem, Microsoft can release their Xbox product to outside of the actual hardware, which is still going to be beneficial. It's the hardware is still going to be the way I'm going to want to play. It's going to be the way a lot of diehard hardcore gamers are going to want to play. They're going to want that native experience. They're going to want everything there hooked up to their surround sound system. They're going to want to experience all that. But I feel like this is just going to open up Microsoft's portfolio of games to a much massive variety amount of gamers, and I think that's just going to bode well for the industry. I don't know. I'm not sure how it would hurt it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts if you think there's an issue there.
I mean, there's no question that this is going to do the things that you said, but when you see Microsoft talk about this, when they this line in particular, our vision for the evolution of gaming is similar to music and movies. So as we sit right now, Brent, they're basically streaming or digitally consuming your music and your movies. That is by and large taking over. It's completely the thing in music. Like there is no CDs or anything like that anymore. Everything's
Right.
digital. Everything's streaming with music. We see movies moving that way now. Obviously, you still have the diehards at like the Blu-ray disc or the 4K discs for that like uncompressed experience. Like that's still an option out there for the diehards. But more and more people moving towards the iTunes, moving towards the Fire TVs, moving towards the Voodoos, just consuming your movies digitally. And so when Microsoft talks about it in this way, and you hear how bullish somebody like Yves Guillemot is on the future of streaming, there's going to come a point at some point in the future, and we might be closer than I think we are to this. But there's going to be a point where video games are predominantly streamed, and that's the way we consume them. And you're a weird dinosaur if you're the guy that's buying a system or playing it on a disc anymore. And honestly, we'll get to the point at some point in the future where there is none of that stuff anymore. Like everything is streaming. So it's just my question with all that is that what we want from the future of gaming? Like, do we want a just predominantly streaming future, and what does that mean for the technology and for the ability to get this out to a mass audience and to continue to improve graphically and all that kind of stuff? Like what does that look like? I can't wrap my head around it right now, and just kind of express what that would look like because I don't really know. But I'm curious if anybody in the chat has any thoughts on this. But that's what I'm getting at, Brent. It's like clearly when Microsoft refers to music and movies and Ubisoft refers to the future of gaming, like streaming is it. This is what these people believe. This is the future of gaming. At some point, this will be the way we play our video games via streaming. And is that the best thing for this industry?
Right. No, I see what you're saying. And I mean, I got to believe at some point it likely will be. But I mean, that could be 10, 20 years down the line. I mean, I don't think these publishers are going to want to be like, hey, look, a big majority of our audience, or maybe it's not a big majority, I don't know. But a lot of our hardcore fans, they want hardware. And if these if the publisher's like, hey, look, we'll create hardware and they're going to buy it, we'll keep doing it. I think eventually, we'll maybe it is like you said, we're just dinosaurs. And it's funny because TFX in the chat said, when boxes go away, I'm done with gaming. I'll go retro for the rest of my life. I've had a good run. And I feel you, TFX. I just, but at the same time, I've always done well when it comes to evolving with the technology. I take the punches as they come, and at some point I wouldn't doubt we won't have boxes anymore, and I'll be sad. But if I can still have awesome experiences, gaming experiences, and they've mastered the streaming technology where it is one-to-one, if you were to have a box on your desk, I'd be cool with that. I'd be okay with that. But again, there's so many variables outside of like gaming, the internet, ISPs, data caps, stuff like that. I mean, there's all sorts of concerns. Can they guarantee, if I don't like the idea of, and I'm sure the publishers look at this, if my internet goes down or if something goes down, I can't play my games. Mm-hmm. I don't like that. And I don't know how they have to figure out how to get around that before they can just say, okay, we're done with boxes. There's a lot of hurdles they need to clear before they can get to that point.
I mean, we're kind of almost dealing with that right now, aren't we? I mean, when the internet goes down and you can't fire up PSN or Xbox Live, or you can't play Destiny or something like that, I mean, aren't we already kind of dealing with that? Like when your internet goes down, is your first instinct, man, let me go play a game? It's like for me, I'm like, man, I can't even log in. I can't even get trophies to pop up on my account. I'm just like, all right, I'll just wait till the internet comes back on. I'll go, read a book or something until it comes back on. I already feel that way. Like when the internet goes down, I feel like I'm disconnected from the world of gaming as it is.
Yeah, my Switch works good without internet.
Yeah, well, I guess
there
that's
you go. See, Nintendo's
that's
ahead
one
of the
positive.
Curve.
Yeah,
Nintendo has figured it out before Microsoft and Sony. If my internet goes down, my Switch still works. Kudos to Nintendo.
That's what happens when you have zero online strategy. You don't have to worry about that stuff. So that's the one thing that Nintendo has done with their sterling online strategy. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how all this stuff plays out, Brent. And I don't know what the future of gaming looks like. I definitely don't think this is 10 or 20 years away. Like we're talking 5 to 10 years in this with the way that these publishers and developers are talking about this. I mean, xCloud is going to be out next year in its testing phase. They mentioned this is a multi-year journey, but yeah, I think this is clearly now going to be a part of the next generation of gaming. It's just how much of a part of the next generation of gaming is the question that needs to be answered at this point. Obviously, there's a million more questions surrounding this and what this looks like and what this means for other manufacturers, and do we get to a point where everybody is just making games for the same box? I mean, I think ultimately that's the route that we're going. There's going to be that one box to rule them all in the future. So whether it's just your TV, just streaming to it, and you just buy a controller at the store or whatever the case may be, or maybe your TV just comes with a controller, like whatever the case may be. I think that's definitely in the future for games as it is. And like you said, Brent, at the end of the day, I mean, we're gamers. This is what we do, man. We love playing games. We love consuming all these awesome experiences that we can get from video games. So whether we're streaming that or whether we're playing it off a disc on a box, doesn't really matter at the end of the day as long as we're getting those experiences. So
Hmm.
if this is the future, at some point we're gonna have to embrace it and we'll deal with it. I'm sure we'll get over it and we'll enjoy playing games via streaming if it works, right? It's
Yeah, and
just the way it's gonna be.
yeah, and the thing is, like, I'm actually, if this does work as well as it does, even
Mhm.
as somebody who has an Xbox One X at home and I like playing here, the fact that I can sit here and play Destiny 2 on the Xbox One, play a little bit, maybe, okay, I gotta go. I go to work, I bring my controller, I bring that stupid controller with the hook and everything. I'm gonna look like an idiot, but I don't care. People at work already know I'm a nerd, so I'm cool with this. But I'll bust that thing out, and if I can sit there on a 4G network and get right back in and play Destiny 2 on the go, that's a win for me. That is a very sexy, appealing thing. I know you don't have a lot of time to play at work. I do have breaks and lunches where I can just sit in the break room, and if I can sit there and knock stuff out in Destiny 2 while I'm on the go and it works good, I think that's very, very appealing. And while
Mhm.
I mean, for people who don't have boxes, that's awesome. I mean, you can seriously just log into this thing on your phone or your tablet and log into your Xbox Live account, buy games, or I'm sure they'll have a rental service as well with this, and and just play it on the go. You don't have to have the system. That's awesome. I mean, this all just sounds so sexy. It's just gonna be how they execute, how they implement it, and if it works good. If they do this, dude, I will use this. I'm still gonna be a console gamer. I'm gonna still play most of my time at home, but if I can play some of these games on the go for a little bit and it works great, that's awesome. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that was one other thing I wanted to ask you about, like the whole setup of it. So it's like hooking the controller onto your phone or whatever. Are
Don't
you
care.
you okay with that setup? Or
Dude,
I
I break
definitely
out I
I
break
don't
out the
want to
Switch at
play.
work. I break out the Switch at work. I break out the Vita at work. I'll break out a controller with a phone attached to it. I don't care.
I do not want to play games on my tablet with touch controls. That is definitely
No, no, no,
something
no, 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 no,
that
no,
they
no.
they spent a little bit of time and they spent a lot of time in that video showing people like playing Halo and stuff on a tablet, and I just don't see how that works. I mean,
No.
you have a controller with 12 buttons on it, and you've got a touchscreen. Like how do you how do you how do you reconcile that? I don't see that ever being a viable option to play games with, no matter how many people try to take a shot at touchscreen gaming. So I hope that's not a big part of this. But that is the one thing, TFX, that would get me to just leave gaming completely. If we completely abandon controllers and we're all touchscreen gaming,
Oh yeah, no, 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 no.
that's the total peace sign, and
Nope.
I'll be sticking to my my retro consoles. But yeah, it's there's some excitement, there's some trepidation, there's a lot of questions that are going into this, and this is going to be a divisive issue for the game industry. I mean, we haven't even talked about things like physical ownership, Brent, and the whole issue with that when it comes to
Right.
digital rights and people who like to own their stuff physically. I mean, that's a
That's
whole
true.
different ball of wax when it comes to this stuff, and that's going to alienate, maybe not a majority of the community, but there's going to be, a niche chunk of the community that could just be turned off from gaming completely by something like this. So
That's
that's
a good point too.
going to be another aspect of this that we'll have to closely monitor. But that's not the only thing that's going on in the world of
Nope.
Microsoft. So also earlier today, Jason Schreier came out on Kotaku and put out an article stating that sources of his have informed him that Microsoft is close to buying revered RPG developer Obsidian. So, this is interesting. Let's read from the Kotaku article here. Microsoft is finalizing a deal to acquire the independent development studio Obsidian Entertainment, according to three people briefed on the negotiations. So we have three witnesses essentially to this story, which lends a lot of credence to this. We don't know if ink is on paper yet, and plenty of major acquisition deals have fallen apart in the final hours, but those close to the companies believe it is all but done. One person with knowledge of the deal told Kotaku they'd heard it was 90% finished. A second person said it's a matter of when, not if. Obsidian is, of course, best known for Knights of the Old Republic 2 and Fallout New Vegas, and has been independent since it was founded in 2003. The Irvine, California-based studio has long been beloved by RPG fans, but has often faced financial strains, nearly going out of business in 2012, which I
Hmm.
think is a really interesting part of this story, before it signed a deal for an online tank game and launched a Kickstarter for the isometric throwback that would become Pillars of Eternity. One compelling argument for the sale is that being owned by a company with deep pockets will offer Obsidian stability and resources the likes of which they've never had before.
Hmm.
So of course, when they ask Microsoft, we do not comment on rumors or speculation. I'm particularly fond of Obsidian's response.
This is
So
awesome.
unfortunately, we don't comment on rumors or speculation, other than to say that the Rumors album by Fleetwood Mac still holds up, said an Obsidian spokesperson. In late 2017, this is another interesting part of this deal. Obsidian announced that it was developing a new RPG that would be published by Pirate Division, a label of 2K games designed to fund mid-sized games. The companies did not say anything about which consoles the RPG would be available on, and it's not clear how this sale will affect that game. One option is for Microsoft to buy out the contract. Another is for Microsoft to simply inherit it, allowing Obsidian to tie up its loose ends as part of the acquisition. While it is not our policy to comment on rumors or speculation, we look forward to publishing the upcoming RPG from Obsidian Entertainment and remain confident in the team there to deliver an outstanding game, said a representative for Pirate Division. So clearly, that game is still in the works, and they're still expecting it to come out at some time via 2K. So, a person familiar with the goings on at Microsoft said the company has been looking to bolster its PC development, which makes the PC focused Obsidian a perfect fit. Another interesting part of this brand is Obsidian and Microsoft have a checkered history. Before the release of the Xbox One, Obsidian was working on an Xbox exclusive role playing game published by Microsoft called Stormlands. Tense disagreements between the two companies led Microsoft to cancel the game in 2012, and to some involved, it was hard to imagine the pair working together again. The Xbox department is under different leadership now, however, with Phil Spencer taking the top role in early 2014, and the move appears to make sense for both parties. So, Brent,
Hmm.
what is going on here with this Obsidian deal, man?
Hey, look, a checkered pass is a checkered pass, but if you have a talented developer and you throw enough money at them, it's a quick way to forget that checkered pass.
Oh yeah, money
And
talks.
yeah, and like you said, Phil Spencer's in charge now, and not dealing with the previous management. But when I read this story, I mean, we've heard these rumors for months now. There's
Hmm.
Obsidian always seems to be a part of the discussion when they talk about the studios that Microsoft is acquiring, and this makes sense for them. I mean, obviously. Microsoft is making a lot of moves. This is another one of these deals that we're not, if it is completed, if this actually happens, this is something we're not going to see any of the results of it until next gen. But
Hmm.
if you look at the moves that Microsoft is making, they are doubling down, going all in for next gen by bringing in another celebrated developer. I mean, these guys are really good. They've had a good history. Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, by all accounts, are fantastically reviewed games. I mean, they are very, very well received games. And to know that you're bringing in a talented developer like this who excels at RPGs, this is a big move for Microsoft. And again, you put them a developer that knows how to create a good story, a good campaign, a good single player experience alongside Ninja Theory and Compulsion Games. You've got a nice group of like single player focused developers that are responsible for your next generation of console in terms of like games and experiences and IPs. So on paper, this makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Obsidian is an independent studio. They almost went out of business before. They relied on Kickstarter for Pillars of Eternity, and obviously Kickstarter is not the best way to go about getting a game made. And when it
Especially
comes to
nowadays.
yeah, and especially, considering the resources that Microsoft has in the deep pockets, this will give Obsidian unlimited resources and be able to create something truly spectacular with their DNA in it. This bodes well for Obsidian. But I'm really excited. I think this is a nice get. I think if this happens, this will be a nice get. And again, setting themselves up for a very, very promising next gen.
Hmm. Yeah, and obviously Schreier has multiple sources on this story. He's also obviously very well connected in the industry, very reliable with this stuff. So I feel like if he's confident in coming out and writing this story based on what his sources have told him, I think it's a pretty safe bet that this is in the pipeline and will be revealed in short time here in the near future as being a done deal. And personally, I don't have a lot of experience with Obsidian. Haven't played New Vegas, haven't played Knights of the Old Republic 2, haven't really played Stick of Truth or Pillars of Eternity or any of this stuff. I've obviously heard good things about their games over the years, so clearly they have a knack for the role playing genre. And I think, for Microsoft to bring in a studio like this and give Obsidian the opportunity to not, like you said, just be independent and struggling financially, just getting by with Kickstarter on a game to game basis, for
Mm-hmm.
them to be able to, for Microsoft to be like, hey, you guys can now make a AAA RPG. Like, here's the money. You can go out and make a AAA RPG, like whatever kind of RPG you see fit. Like, could this lead to something like Microsoft's own Horizon, so to speak? Like
Mm-hmm.
Obsidian gets the resources to finally go out and cut their teeth on a big time AAA franchise for for Xbox. Like, what does that game look like? So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's some interesting possibilities here with all this, and I wanna broach this subject with you on this, Brent, and it's something I brought up to you and Frankie earlier today when we were talking about this. But it's very interesting, the tactics that Microsoft is taking with acquiring all of these different studios. And we talked about the
Mm-hmm.
ones at E3. So what are the ones they've got? They got Ninja Theory, Compulsion Games, Playground Games. What was the fourth one at E3?
Uh, um, t- uh,
Escapes me right now.
who made State of Decay?
Oh, Undead Labs.
Yep, Undead
Yeah,
Labs.
Undead Labs. So Undead
Mm-hmm.
Labs, and now looking to possibly add Obsidian into the framework here. So by all accounts, most of those uh, studios, they all specialize in different types of games, different types of franchises that they're involved in. So I think they have an interesting mix of studios there that they're bringing into their stable. But like I said, one of the things we were talking about amongst the three of us was this idea of Microsoft's approach to the situation. And I offered this point, Brent. I feel like Microsoft at this point, is, to use a sports analogy. My apologies to those of you that don't follow sports, but Microsoft almost feels like the Washington Redskins of the video game industry to me. And what I mean by this is, um, they're the Redskins for years, and honestly, I don't follow the Redskins super closely, so I don't know if this is what they're doing nowadays. But for years, the Redskins had been all about going out and buying the high name, the high price, big name free agents. They would
Mm-hmm.
go out as soon as free agency started. All right, let's go out. Daniel Snyder's got deep pockets. Let's go out. Let's put a bid out here to get the best free agents that come out on the market. And occasionally you get a big time free agent that makes it onto your team, and they're a great player, and they add a lot to your team. But oftentimes it seems like you collect this collection of disparate elements, and you try to bring in all these big name players, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have a good team. Like, you bring them in, you put them onto your squad, and personalities don't gel. Maybe there's too many type A guys, and they're all kind of bickering amongst one another, or their abilities and their talents just aren't as much on display on this team as they were on another team, or whatever the case may be. A lot of times you bring those high price free agents over, and they just don't
Mm-hmm.
pan out for whatever reason. But on the other end of the coin, you look at a team like the Green Bay Packers or the New England Patriots, for instance. Like, these guys go out and they typically like to raise people up through the draft. So they go out, they identify the talent that they want for their team, they draft them onto their team, and then they use their farm system and use their veterans to develop up these players and kind of replace the next veterans, and the cycle continues, and so on and so forth. So, the names on the back of the jerseys, they might not be as sexy as the big time free agents that the
Mm-hmm.
Redskins would bring in, but at the end of the day, the Packers and the Patriots are constantly vying for Super Bowls year in and year out, and the
Right.
Washington Redskins are at the bottom of the division more often than not. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting analogy, and obviously video games are much different than the NFL. So I'm not trying to say like this is a 1-to-1 ratio here, but when you look at Sony or Nintendo, these guys that have generally brought their first party studios up from within. They've
Mm-hmm.
developed their talent from within. They've worked with this talent closely in the past, and they brought them into their stable permanently. You look at them as like the Patriots or the Packers, and then you look at what Microsoft's doing, trying to build a dynasty from the outside in. It's an interesting strategy, and like I said, things are different with video games than they are with the NFL. But when you bring in these outside studios, like, you run the risk of, okay, well, this studio's been independent since day one, or they've been independent for years and years. Like, how do
Right.
they play, or how do they work when they're under the umbrella of Microsoft? When they have, of course, we assume they're going to have unlimited creative freedom there, but at the end of the day, like Microsoft's still fronting the money for this. They're still overseeing these studios. Like, how does that relationship work out? There's no guarantee that those relationships work out in the end. So I just want to kind of get your thoughts on that, man. Like, what do you think about the approach that Microsoft's taking to this? And is this ultimately going to be a good thing in the end, or do you think there is a chance that maybe this doesn't go as planned?
Well, you always run. There's always a risk. There's always a chance that something will run amok and it doesn't pan out. But it
Yeah.
all comes down to leadership, or as you would say, coaching. And Phil Spencer's leadership, and he is pretty big on giving people the freedom to create the games they want to create. And I think
Hmm.
under his guidance and and his leniency, I think these developers will have the freedom to create the games they want to create and not worry about Phil saying, "Hey, look, this needs multiplayer, or this needs this and this needs that." Let these developers do what they do best, but with a bigger amount of money, with a bigger budget, and let's see what happens then. Obviously, these developers, I look at Ninja Theory and I look at Obsidian. I didn't play a lot of Fallout New Vegas, but I know there's a lot of people that consider that one the best Fallout game out of the bunch. Fallout New Vegas is one of the ones that people love the most. But Stick of Truth was really, really good. There's a lot of love for Pillars of Eternity, and again, that is received very, very well. So obviously they're very, very talented. Ninja Theory, very, very talented. And again, when I think of these developers, these studios with deeper pockets and bigger budgets, creating something on a grand scale, dude, I have to be excited. I mean, yes, dude, there could be one day where a Naughty Dog could go out and make a game and it's going to suck. Everyone's going to be like, whoa, we didn't see that coming. Which, I mean, every developer is going to run into one of those at some point in time where their game is just not going to be well received. There's always that chance, no matter the developer. But I just feel like, with Obsidian and when you look at Ninja Theory, I think they're all in a really good position. It's just going to be up to Microsoft management, coaching, to let them, kind of guide these developers and encourage them to do what you guys want to do best and,
Hmm.
and let it go from there. But yeah, I think there's always a chance that some of these games could suck, but the pedigree for these studios, some of these studios, is very, very good.
Yeah. Because I mean, we got to this point because of some issues that Microsoft's had with their internal studios, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what happened with Scalebound and with Platinum Games? Like, what
Right.
happened with Lionhead? Like, why did these studios and these deals not work out? And have Microsoft, like, have they learned from that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
or is this simply just a reaction? Like, man, everybody's saying that we need to bolster our first party stable. We're not as competitive from a first party standpoint as the other big two are. Let's go out and just start buying up a bunch of people and see if we can bolster our stable that way. Like, what's to say that we won't have another Scalebound in the future, or we won't have another Lionhead?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully these guys go out and they just are able to make great games. But any trepidation just from the recent history when it comes to Microsoft and their first party deals?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that there's always a chance, and we've seen Microsoft's past with their first party studios, and that's always going to be a concern. But at the same time, I look at Phil Spencer and I look at their leadership now. They're Microsoft is a very confident group right now, and they should be. They've learned from their mistakes. They were humbled big time. They learned from their mistakes, and they're trying to right the ship, and they're trying to gear up so next gen they can come on and be like, look, here are all the first party games that we have from
Mhm.
these talented developers. Here's all this great variety of games. That's not just shooters and horde modes. I mean, we've got these great single player experiences. That's what they're gearing up for. Obviously, yes, no matter what studio it is, there's always going to be a chance that this doesn't work out, but they're making moves to be able to offer a bigger variety of games to give the gamers, the Xbox gamers, games that they really want to play, games that they haven't seen on an Xbox in a while. And I think this is the right step in the right direction. Whether or not these games turn out, I have no idea. But there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, and clearly the developers they're going after, like, these are guys with first player or single player pedigrees,
Mm-hmm.
so clearly trying to bolster that aspect of their development business. Clearly they've taken the feedback from their fans and from critics around the industry that have been like, hey, you guys need to bolster that first party development studio. You need to maybe tap into more of that single player experience, and like, we want some of those games on Xbox as well. So clearly they're positioning themselves to be able to offer those kind of offerings to their fans, and that could definitely be a really, really good thing in the future. We see
Mm-hmm.
the potential that first party games have when they're done right. So yeah, there could definitely be some exciting things coming down the line. The other question with this, Brent, is what does this mean for the other side of the coin? So a couple things I'm thinking of here. So with Microsoft buying Obsidian and Ninja Theory and Compulsion and these other studios, like how do you feel if you're a Sony fan or if you're a Nintendo fan? I don't think Nintendo factors as much into this. They obviously don't have as strong of a footing in the third party AAA space. They're very strong in the independent space, but when it comes to third party AAA games, they don't generally get too much involved in this space when it comes to this. This is probably more geared towards a PlayStation angle. But how does Sony feel about this? How do PlayStation fans feel about this? Is this something where these are good developers, but these aren't like, you know, like tip of your tongue developers when you talk about developers in the game industry? These are more like mid-tier developers that have made great games in the past that lots and lots of people have enjoyed. But like you said, it's not like, they've this is not CD Project Red, for instance, that we're talking about here. So how does that factor into them? Do they simply like, oh, this is one we're going to lose out on, and we hope that they make some great games for Xbox? Or do you think this could even start like an arms race in the future? And is this the future of the game development now, where instead of looking at exclusive games made by developers, we're looking at exclusive developers making games for your platform? Like, do we run into an arms race where then does Sony look at its business and be like, man, we better go out, we better make an offer for Insomniac, or we better make an offer for CD Projekt Red before Microsoft gets in and tries to do the same thing? Like, is that something we could be moving towards here?
I mean, I don't see it happening. First of all, I don't think Sony. I don't think Sony cares. I don't think Sony's worried about this acquisition. But because Sony has a very strong first party line stable of developers already, the reason Microsoft is making these moves is because of Sony and Nintendo. They have established first party IPs and first party games and what have you. They're all set. I don't think they're too worried about this. This is Microsoft gearing up for the future so they can compete with the PlayStations and with the Nintendos of the world. They want to be able to say, hey, look, our first party stuff is just as good, if not better. So no, I don't know if this will start an arms race. I don't think Sony's gonna be like, oh man, we got to go out and start buying stuff. They have plenty of developers. Do they go out and maybe buy a couple indie stuff? Yeah, that's just gonna happen over time. Studios are always gonna get acquired at some point by these big publishers. But I just don't think Sony or Nintendo's going to be in any rush to be like, okay, we got to sign CD Projekt Red, or we got to sign this, we got to sign that. I don't see Sony making those moves. They've got the first-party developers they need, and if they need to add something else, they will, but they're all set in this instance, and I don't think this is anything they need to be concerned about, and I don't think PlayStation fans or Nintendo fans need to be deeply concerned. I mean, yes, it sucks you won't be able to play the next Ninja Theory game unless you own the console, but you've got a lot of good first-party stuff on your platforms, and this is just the way of the business, dude. If you're a gamer right now and you still haven't gotten used to the fact that there's going to be exclusive games, whether they're third-party, whether they get their developers that get picked up by these publishers, if you can't accept that fact by now, I can't help you. This is just something we need to get used to. This is gaming as it is, and you can't bitch about one and then not bitch about the other. So if you're a PlayStation fan and you're upset about this, you can't say, oh, it's a good move by Sony the next time. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Look, this is it. Deal with it and move on. If you don't like it, don't buy the games. If you don't, voice your opinion to these publishers. Let them know, hey, I don't like it. But you can't go one against the other. You can't be okay with it because it's the platform you own, but then be pissed when it happens on the other platform. I just think that's lame. That's the weakest thing I see sometimes on social media is they'll be like, oh yeah, it's a great move by Sony, and then immediately after, that's a bad move by Xbox. They shouldn't have done that, or vice versa. That stuff is weak as hell.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And hell, with Project xCloud, maybe we can all just play the next Obsidian game on our phone, so we won't have to worry about having the system. So it all comes full circle. So that is going to do it for this episode of Short Takes, Brent. A lot of interesting stuff going on in the world of Microsoft. You want to give a shout out to everybody that's in the chat there?
Man, the chat was bumping tonight. We had TFX Guy, we had Jacob in there, we had Cooper in there. We had a lot of folks in there, sharing their opinions, and we got to a couple of them. We'll try to get better as we keep doing these. We'll get more and more of your comments in there. So we really appreciate you guys and girls stopping by. And again, we look to do these more often as the stuff happens. Go live that day or the next day. In this instance, we kind of split it up between the two, but we absolutely love that you guys stop in here and chat with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, so we will endeavor, like you said, Brent, to do these as much as possible as the news happens and as as we're available to do. So definitely, once again, thank you to everybody who stopped by in the chat. Twitter handles are underneath us here at the Short Pause. How you follow us on Twitter. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you always know when we go live. If you missed the live show, no worries. Hop into the comment section, leave a comment down there as well. We love to hear from you guys in any and all forms. So be on the lookout for the channel here all week. I'm sure we'll be streaming some more games. I'm sure we'll have Destiny on here at some point. I think that's probably a safe bet. We've got some Black Ops coming up this weekend
Yes.
with the release of Black Ops 4. So Brent, I know you and I will be streaming that at some point as well. Excited to get in and try that out. Try out the blackout mode, the zombies, all that stuff. So you can have some cool stuff on the channel. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Other than that, thank you so much for stopping by. Have a good night. See you guys next time.
See you guys.